I want to see, are there online people who need to introduce themselves?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, Device is my name. I work.
So come again, Davis.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Listen, Device is my name. I work with the Ecological Option Organization.
Okay, thank you, Davis. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Ibrahim Mutebi, working for SNV. Nice to be here.
You next.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm called Zanika Penina. I work for the United Organization for Batwa Development in Uganda, and I'm based in southwestern Uganda. Happy to be part of this. Thank you.
You next. Okay, we will continue to track as colleagues join. I have been joined by other colleagues. I want to reach out to know the diversity of participants in the group.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anna Kandwanamo, and I'm a research fellow with a code, Advocacy, Solutions for Development and Environment.
And then you give the mic to your neighbor. Kibo Richards, I work Uganda Coalition for Development. Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but we just want to run out of time. So I invite Rita. Rita, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rita Chategeka. I head policy advocacy at WWE in Uganda. We are glad to be here. We all know what is happening in the country currently. All the efforts being made by NEMA. And I want to say that at the civil society organizations, we've been pushing for government action. So today we are going to validate a study on clean cooking. But at the back of our minds, we know that we want government to take this on. We know that we want Ugandans to have access to clean cooking technologies because that's the only way that our environment will be enabled to breathe. But as civil society organizations, are we ready for the talk? Are we ready for the actions? So as we listen, as we validate, I think we need to think about actualizing this. If our government woke up one day and said all homesteads must have clean cooking technologies, and probably they brought an iron hand to enforce this, shall we be ready to support them and to back them? So at the end of the day, let's not just do these studies. Let's not spend time validating just to shelve them and to take them off. But let us look at seeing how we can operationalize this. We are all very diverse in here, and I think one thing we are lacking as civil society organizations in the environment sector is having that very strong voice, a voice that will go and challenge parliament, a voice that will go and challenge the power holders. So let us equip ourselves with all the data we want. And at this juncture, I want to thank Emily YC Facility for facilitating several studies, including these that we are going to look at today. And I want to urge each of us to ensure that these studies are operationalized in our different constituencies, but also share them with those that are posed with taking decisions for nature and for the planet. I thank you. I wish you a very good afternoon.
Can we give another round? Rita? Rita, thank you so much for those wonderful and great words and reminding us what is happening as far as enforcement is concerned in Uganda, and also what is happening in Kenya as far as the voices of the youth are concerned. Most importantly, how do we use this information to generate? I think that's critical. And that's why we ensured that amid these tasks, we have the policymakers who are going to be using this information. Because part of this information is what informs policy and also results into informed decision making. So I want to invite Mr. Karia. Mr. Karia is a consultant. He did not introduce himself. Some of you have already any work relating biomass, energy-related stuff, so on and so forth and so on. You might have seen his name somewhere. So we undertook this task through his technical competence to help us unpack what is the current status as far as clean cooking and related aspects are within the Virunga landscape, looking at particular local government. So, Mr. Karia, you are most welcome. I hope the presentation is ready. So, you want to stand here? I think you can stand here. I'm going to hold that. Okay. I think you're okay there.
Yeah, I'm okay. Okay, once again, good afternoon, colleagues in the environmental fraternity. Thank you, Rita, for those remarks. You know, many times we come in meetings as this, but the critical and most important thing is how do we then act hereafter. But I take the honor and privilege to welcome each one of us, including those that are online, to see how best we can validate or find out the state of affairs as they are within Kisoro, Mitoma, and Ruidiz. Just a bit of a background to the study is that, which we already know, is that Emily, with support from CEDA through WWF, commissioned this study. The interest of the study was to strengthen civil society capacity for climate and natural resource governance. So how can civil societies, including the rest of us that are here, have that stronger voice to be able to govern these natural resources? But through now clean and modern cooking solutions, as we will move along. Those are the objectives: to generate adequate and reliable data and information on cooking solutions in the landscape, profile clean cooking technologies and fuels, document public perceptions, of and responses to new clean cooking alternatives, then also identify key advocacy issues to be advanced. Yeah, the key animal in the room is basically clean cooking. And so what we just feel that probably we needed to understand what could be entailed within clean cooking. And we're putting it that it's a set of fuel and stove combination with emission performances that meet the World Health Organization guidelines on indoor air quality. WHO or World Health has, let's say, benchmarks that would qualify a certain would qualify the indoor air quality to either be safe or not. And among such include the content of carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, benzene, naphthalene, to mention but a few. The issue is that what is the allowed amount of, let's say, carbon monoxide do you have if you're in a setting like this for it to be safe for you? So when my grandmother, when my mother, when my aunt, when myself, when each of us, when we are in the kitchen, how is that environment in terms of the stove we're using, but also the fuel? Is it emitting particulate matter? Is it emitting some of this unburned carbon monoxide? How efficient is it? And therefore, that's if you have a stove that will, for example, emit about minimum levels of carbon monoxide in terms of parts per million, I think about 35. And then nitrogen dioxide about 3 parts per million. Then, if it's not exceeding that, chances are that you are with a clean stove, and therefore the fuel itself that you're using is equally clean. And so some of the efficient fuels of those that fall under the clean cooking, we have high efficient charcoal and biomass pellets or stoves. Having been in the stove industry for quite, we know that there are those stoves that are from 0 to 2 here, and those are the most abundant within the communities that we operate. But under clean cooking, these are not taken as stronger appliances to be used. So we have to move up along the energy ladder, that even the appliances that we're using, they will offer us that. So we have LPG, we have biogas, bioethanol, and then electric stoves and pressure cookers. Then of course, that's cooking, clean cooking, but then a solution. Solution is anything that is specific to a certain context. The solution, for example, that the Kenyans are using to solve whatever that it is that they are at, couldn't probably work here. So even when we look at clean cooking solutions, the context of the place where we are tailoring this certainly has to be benchmarked and has a vital parameter to play in that setting. So as I was saying that solutions are specific, but should be that they meet the consumer needs and the willingness to pay. For as long as there is no willingness to pay, that means that the value for the product itself for the intended person isn't understood. So what are you going to do that as corporate bodies, as governments, as investors, trying to reach out to the net zero commitments and the carbon emissions? Then clean and modern cooking must be taken as a very pivotal component if we to realize some of this. We're trying to say why clean cooking. And so we're saying that under Agenda 2030, clean and modern energy is placed at the forefront in containing climate change. But also, we all know that SDG 7, which is asserting that we need to have affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy, cannot be achieved, including all the targets, all the emission targets we put up like under the, as we shall see down, may not be realized if we leave business as usual. Business as usual is not to mean that we are not improving in terms of stocks, we are. But we talked about efficiency, particulate matter content, and then the amount of carbon that releases and all this. So we need to change. And we see to it that as we do this, then the overall components in terms of the environment, where we interact, each one of us has had some food before probably getting here, unless they fasted. All these are inextricably attached to the state of the ecosystem and environment where we're operating. So investing in alternatives will help to safeguard natural resources, like habitats, If, for example, if I jump into the study, you will see that the overall, let's say, firewood usage is above 96% within the landscape. And in the landscape, you have all these natural resources that are intertwined. So that means if we do not do something about this and we stay as business as usual, then life forms will be threatened. That will include human, but also other forms of living organisms with whom we share the ecosystem. And yet, some of these organisms are fetching quite an amount of money through tourism. But also, when we get alternatives, this is already available data. But about 30% of global mitigation can be resolved through nature-based climate solutions. That is, we say through SLM and the forest eco restoration or ecosystem restoration. So there's that presumption that if we act and make sure that the amount of biomass that have been cut, for energy is reduced, then at least 30% of the would have been emissions then are imbibed, and then the environment is restored. Also globally, the African Union mandates the African Renewable Energy Initiative to achieving sustainable development in Africa. And that still to which the East African Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency is mandated to provide sustainable energy for all by 2030. So there is no way how we can have all these obligations, all these alliances that you have the global, let's say you have the SDGs, then you have the Africa, then you have the East Africa, and of course at some point you have the Ugandan component. You cannot realize all this without thinking about clean cooking. Therefore, dependence on solid biomass cannot take us further, but it will instead result into the extinct of the very planet upon which we are existing or staying. Yeah, looking at the Ugandan context, we know that on average household use for wood fuels as a primary cooking is at around 96%. However, national access to clean cooking is less than 6%. That's at 5%. But access to modern cooking fuel is less than 1%. Its average is about 0.75%. Therefore, cooking with polluting fuels averagely leads to 32,500 deaths for women and children annually. And this coupled with some of us, when you move outside of Kampala, you probably have a fresh breath of life. When you come in Kampala, then you know how pollution can affect. And that if you visited some hospitals, you will realize that there is an increase of asthmatic and lung-related illnesses as a function of pollution. So environmental damage from all harvesting of trees for household energy is therefore causing a lot of biodiversity and climate loss, which without redress would degrade the critical habitats upon which Uganda does stay. And now this is where we say we can correlate this and consider this with, let's say, the current tourism contribution to the Ugandan GDP. Therefore, national priority is that through the Vision 2040, the third National Development Plan, and the updated NDC, Uganda came up with an economy-wide mitigation target of 24.7%. And in there, if we deliberated undertake clean cooking, then it will help us to increase on Uganda's voluntary carbon markets in terms of carbon credits and all this, than leaving things as they are. Uganda notice again that the integrated clean cooking strategy is actually aiming at eliminating cooking poverty, to achieve clean cooking by 2030. So there are initiatives that are being done to address what we are currently undertaking. It is something that is very critical, and we have to act as early when we still have the energy to do that. Uganda, again, experiences those deaths and the 1.6 disability life years annually. And this is basically due to lack of modern cooking options. And then women and children experience 2 to 4 times greater exposure than their male counterparts. However, globally, we know that women spend about 20 hours of their week on tasks that are related to fuel procurement and cooking. This results into loss of opportunities in terms of education and in terms of employment. And so these are things that we want to address. And then that data is also available. So why should we act? We are saying that there is a cost for not acting. The cost for inaction is that Uganda will lose or loses USD 25 billion per year by diverse impacts on health, like we've seen. I was talking about respiratory issues and all this. Then 2.5 billion USD on climate, and then loss of productive time by women, amounting to about 10 billion from that component. And so this points to the clear fact that we need to act than keeping business as usual. Yeah, we therefore had to look at cooking solutions as reflected in the district development plans within the landscape. Isoro, we found out that majority of the population depends on the environment and natural resources for their livelihoods and survival. We also found out that the average land holding in Isoro has been dwindling from 5.0 in 2020 to about 0.25 around 2024 acres. And therefore, this has implications on biomass availability, and that therefore causes for action. We really cannot afford to keep business as usual. Then in terms of cooking and the entire eating stuff, electricity for cooking and eating within the SDP is at 1.2%, firewood 8%, charcoal 8%, kerosene and gas. Those two were lumped as others, and so they are 2.8%. Then the freestone coverage, as at the time when the plan was drafted, is at 80.3%, and then it probably stops at 19.7%. So we are going to paint the picture at the district level, and then you get to know why we need to act. That is briefly the bit within the district development plans. And now for Mitoma district, again, as the case was for Kisoro, most majority of the population is on the environment and natural resources. That is not questionable. The average land holding is between 0.25 to 0.45 hectares. Again, it's equally also not the type that would say, okay, we have the land, we'll always get biomass from everywhere. You know, we don't need to act. But within the plan, they are referring to the National Housing and Population Census of 2014, where households that were using using LPG were 144. Those that were using electricity were 747. Those on charcoal were 1,946. And then firewood came up with 36,237. So on average, you realize that even when you sum up all the other energy fuels within LPG, electricity, charcoal, and all, and divide them by firewood over charcoal, you'll get a factor of no less than 4. That the firewood usage is at least 12 times more than the other ones combined. And so again, an urgency for action. Yeah, the demand for fuel wood and charcoal resulted in unbearable deforestation rates and environmental degradation as it's established within the plan. So within the release, they say it's clear that about 75% of gazetted forest reserves have been depleted because of human activities, but basically accessing cooking fuel. And then within the release, over 95% of household, institutional, and industrial energy demands is from firewood and charcoal, which is again used inefficient or so within the district development plan, it's clear that use of cooking solutions, clean cooking solutions like LPG, biogas, and briquettes is almost non-existent. It's currently insignificant. So that means that the entire, most of the people within the district are basically relying on firewood or whichever way we put it as wood fuel. And therefore, that calls for action. But the average land holding in Rubirizi is 0.8 hectares per household. So that means that land is not expanding. The natural resources are equally not expanding. Every day, a child is born. And when a child is born, they will be thought to use warm water to at least, yeah. And so that water will come with energy usage, which might be from these other places and all that. So anyway, we get to the design, to the methodology of the survey. Then here, we employed the next research design that employed both qualitative and quantitative methodologies. It comprises of a quantitative cross-section. Why cross-section? Again, because we are getting a certain number of people from the entire section, from the entire registered beneficiaries from which Emily is interacting or interacted. And from within this cross-section, we're going to look at how we can get information on variables like on clean cooking appliances, fuels, application factors, fuel costs, distances that are covered, cost of energy itself, and many other variables as we will. And then the other part of the method was to use a phenomenal qualitative design to generate data on specific qualitative aspects that were of a specific context in terms of perspective, in terms of customs, in terms of practices, attitudes, all those that influence or have an association with clean cooking, to find out from key stakeholders on how best then can we address this. So within the quantitative component of the survey, that's what we were looking at. We're looking at cooking energy users. Some of these were households. So we were trying to look at their demographics, the current cooking solutions, cost of cooking, views on traditional stove, fuel costs, alternatives. How best can we then make the alternative cooking solutions be acceptable and accessible within the community? But also within the survey, we're also trying to look at if in the event that we found some traders and suppliers, most of middlemen of those that produce these appliances, influencing That should be supply and demand and supply of clean cooking solutions, energy markets. What are the key variables? What are the key aspects that this would require? And then also look at opportunities and challenges. And then for basically one of the main key components within the study was to look at local capacity within the landscape in terms of clean cooking. But maybe what I should point out is that clean cooking understanding within the landscape is not what we have here. The understanding is basically improved cookstoves with a slight modification of gas inclusion. Yeah, qualitatively, we had to look at or to collect information on key factors for the state and functionality of clean and modern cooking solutions within the landscape. This was basically done through key format interviews and focus group discussions. Key informant interviews were established the factors and power centers that influence clean and modern cooking. These would include issues of awareness, issues of availability, reliability, affordability, safety, convenience, supply, and financing models, among others. Then FGDs were basically held with women, men, and youth to generate information on energy solutions. Again, in terms of awareness of energy property, are people aware what they feel they will always be eating? You know, is it a concern that we should now be thinking outside of the current bracket, or is it business as usual? And the suggestion to make clean and modern cooking solutions inclusive and evolving were assessed. So in terms of baseline survey process, that gives a synopsis of the discovery of relevant project documents, drafting data collection tools, key format and focus group discussions, inception report, then go to the field, recruit research assistants, pre-test, modify data collection tools, undertake data collection, and then all that. The debrief, then come back with synthesize, and then all this is just a bit of a simple process to highlight on how we've been undertaking this. Now, sampling, this is basically where what I want to put out here is that in terms of the sample size, remember that this project was basically or largely for civil society capacity strengthening, for improving climate and natural resource governance. So the main targets were the rest of you people, you know, civil society, NGOs that are into this landscape. However, for strategic reporting and for making it more reliable, Emily had to sit with that they get a number of households that are from within the landscape that were registered as the beneficiaries to also now argument or support what is coming from the civil society component with the households. You know, these are most basically key people that are on policy and stuff like that. But then you also want to get what the end user is talking about these things. So within that, from the population of 327 households, we got a sample size of 180 households. How did we get to the 180 households? We use that formula of calculating that, where we know that N is the sample size, small n is the sample size, capital N is the total number of targeted, which were just at the early, and then E is the margin of error at 5%, and it gives us a sample size of 180 households. So that's what we interacted with. Then household sampling. How did we sample the households that we interacted with? a list of households. This poll is a systematic sampling procedure. A list of households in a district constituted the sampling frame of respondents in that particular district. Then the total number, which we are talking about as capital N, of registered households in the project was divided by the allocated sample size small n to get a sampling interval. And so the sampling interval is what we are taking as K. Now, using a random number, that random number generation Microsoft Excel, we got a random number between 1 and K. No, I'll jump that the total number of registered households in the project was divided. You know, you have capital N, dividing it into small n to get the sampling interval, which we are calling as K. Now, using that random number generation Microsoft Excel package, we got a random number between 1 and K was generated, and the corresponding household was selected to constitute the first sampled household, which we are calling as N1, and a random start for the systematic sampling without replacement. The next sampled household was selected by adding the interval K to N1 until all the required households were then reached or selected. Qualitatively, a sample of 41 persons participating in 3 FGDs and 6 Ks were proposed. These were purposely selected based on their resourcefulness and anticipated role in the project and stake in the cooking energy sector, as tabulated below. So we interacted with youth, men and women leaders. The intensity was those were the 3 FGDs, giving us that, project partners and key informant interviews, project implementing staff, that, and then key district of government staff to give us that total. In terms of key findings, a total of 180 respondents from target households, as we've seen, participated in the survey. And of these, 59 representing 32.8, 65, 36.1, and 56, 31.1% were from Kisoro, Mitoma, and Lubidis, respectively. In terms of gender, out of the 180 respondents, 145, that is 80.61%, were females, while 35, which is giving us 19.4%, were males. In terms of that gender distribution per district, Kisoro, we had 5.6 males, and then 7.2 females. Mitoma, 7.8, and 13.3. Rubirizi, 6.1 males, and 40. There is something there. That percentage for Rubirizi might not be the females, but sorry? No, this one of 45. It should be different, but findings resonate, like as we said, that when we're doing all this, we're trying to show how do we interface this with the district development plans. And we're saying that findings resonate with the district development plan in highlighting the active participation of women in cooking solutions. Therefore, this calls for a deliberated advocacy strategy in terms of how we include men on board. Why? Is that because some of the effects of clean or inefficient cooking are felt by women and children, yet some of these decisions are basically made by men. So unless there's a strategic intervention of including men from the 29, oh, okay, yeah, more. from whatever they were to a certain other higher level, we may not be doing much. So the survey inquired on highest education level in an attempt to ascertain general ability to read and write. Why did we ascertain general ability to read and write? Is that we, as we come in with the clean cooking, at some point we are trying to look at whatever initiatives, whatever ideas, whatever programs that are being advocacy campaigns, awareness and all, can information flow from point A to point X or Y? So you need to look at what do you need to do? Will you start with, first of all, trainings or whatever? So findings reveal that 24 households, that is 13.3% of the sampled households, have no formal education. 68, that's 7.8, were primary level holders. 47, 26.1 had attained secondary level, though hadn't completed. And while those who completed secondary with a certificate and went on to attain tertiary were 41, that is 22.8. This therefore meant that on a general, just as it is within the district government plans, there is ability, even this 13.2 that reported not to have attained formal education, they could write their names, some of them could write their names. So that means that in designing our advocacy strategies and plans, we have a team of people that are able to write and also read, for as long as the message that we are offering out is designed well. The survey also inquired on the awareness and presence of clean cooking solutions within the landscape. And findings revealed that 131, that is 72.8 of the sampled household reported not to be aware of clean and modern cooking solutions, whereas 27.4 affirmed that they were aware. Of the 72.8, 21.7 were from Mitoma, 25 Rubirizi, and sort of 26.1. Again, having worked and moved within these places, you realize that these reflections are true. You move from point A to point B, and you cannot stumble with maybe a deal of let's say LPG in somewhere in Mitoma. If they are to get liquefied petroleum gas, there's a fuel station we go to in Mitoma, and we found the cylinder. They said, guys, let's get here. This is good stuff. They said, we those ones just put them there. But we don't do gas here. So you realize that that's how the trend is. So we have to come up again and make these people aware. We know where we are at. We have seen the preamble of the agents of clean and modern cooking, including the NEDCs, including what is written in the NDP. I mean, yeah, NDP 3, Vision 2040, we know, but our electorate doesn't probably know. So awareness must be a key component of the civil society actors within the landscape. The good thing again is that the population that we have to make the awareness into is a type that is able to read and write. Yeah, like as we said, reliance on solid biomass has got its own challenges. The survey also inquired on the presence of clean and modern cooking solutions in the area. So of the sampled respondents, 46 households, that's 25.6%, affirmed that there are clean and modern cooking solutions in the area. While 133, that's 73.9% reported that there are no clean and modern cooking solutions in the area. Only an individual was, could not respond on either way. This, again, is not very different from what we've seen at the back. of the previous slide. So if existence is only at 25.6, and when you remember that this presentation is lacking some of the verbatim quotes that came precisely from the quantitative cluster. And within the quantitative cluster, what came out clear is that when you talk about clean and modern cooking, about 80% of the reason it goes to improved cook stoves. And one of the testimonies within the verbatim quotes there I will see is that someone saying that, yeah, for us, I know we have clean cooking facilities here. When you come to my kitchen, that stove is clean. My husband can sit here and all that. And is sharing this because they have a shielded stove. They have a mud liner. They have some ramshackle Lorena. But so their understanding of clean cooking, clean and modern, the clean was literally taken in the essence of the absence of that, yes. Which probably could be okay, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. And therefore, we have the peace to break as civil society actors within the landscape to make sure that this is a reality. However, within that 25.6, if you isolate out clean cooking, I mean, improved cook stoves, because improved cook stoves, I think is around 20 point something down, as we see. You realize that the bit of clean and modern, if we're trying to look at it in terms of LPG, in terms of electricity, bioethanol, biogas, is about maybe something about 3 point something percent within the landscape. And so it is the efforts of other actors like WWF, Hima Foods, Katara, Women Group, and other actors that are within the biomass energy cook stove that is trying to literally improve the clean cooking percentage to that. But if we isolated the clean cook stoves or the improved stoves, it's estimating around 3 point something percent. And therefore, again, a cause for more information flow and awareness on this. So we had to find out if the survey inquired on the currently used cooking solutions within the landscape. And findings have revealed that 177 households, that's about 98.3%, reported to be using the 3-stone stove. 37 households, that's 20.6% were using improved cook stoves, which included Lorena, the shielded, and other ceramic stoves. 18 households, that is 10%, were using the charcoal stove. And 6 households, remember this is from the sample and then we are reporting. That is 3.3%. We're using LPG, and 5 households, which is about 2.8%, reported to be using electricity as for cooking. When you look at 177 households, you could ideally point out and infer that literally every household within the landscape it could probably be having, let's say, some bit of gas or some bit of electricity or even an improved cook stove. But alongside that, they literally have a 3-stone cook stove. And we know the efficiency that comes with a 3-stone cook stove. We all know its features and all that. So that's, again, what is before us. So we were interested in finding out factors that what could have influenced the choice of that stock to be the major one within the landscape. And the major reason reported that influenced respondents' choice of the stove, with about 116 of them, that's 64.4% reported that the stove is for free. The stove was for free. That is basically a 3-stove stove. So as we plan to come in with clean and modern cooking solutions, how best do we then have to see that the issue of energy pricing and all this is captured? Then 114, 63.3 reported that stove is easily available. Remember, I pointed to us that we walked to a nearby fuel station within Mitoma. I think, is it Kiang or something like that? There were cylinders there, but no gas inside. But they had been there for quite a while. So that's why people are forced to get back to the wood, the firewood, because to get back to the stone or even improved cook stove. Why? Because then the stove is for free, but the stove is easily available. So within availability, they were not referring to an improved cook stove because they were not easily available. But then they were referring to the 3-stone stove. Then 62.8% responded that the stove requires low cost, of course, or no cost to maintain. And then 41.1% of them reported that the fuel used by the cooking solution is easy to access. In fact, some of them said the fuel is free. So until the communities in which we are operating come to realize that even the firewood in its sense is not free, then we will always be in this iterative cycle of feeling that they will never reach a point and they don't have even something to put in the what? In the stove. Some of the minor reasons for the choices of the cooking, those were major, but minor, minor but also could be major, that 67 of the households reported that stove is flexible. We were at some point and someone said, I have different saucepans. One is of this diameter, one is of this diameter, and the other is of this. Now, if you improve the cooktop to 1 or 2 odd diameters, or if you gave me a series of that 60, base, then it won't. I will need probably to have only those small, that specific diameter of the pan or the cooking pot to use. So why they are using the 3-stone stove is because it's flexible, can be adjusted depending on the cooking pot diameter or size. 35.6 say that the stove adds flavor or aroma to the food. In fact, it was at this point that some of them said that some tasted matoke that had been made or cooked on gas, and it had some, so in terms of advocacy, there are certain myths that are coming with our people that need to be demystified and cleared. Then we can give a landing to clean and modern cooking. 53 households, 29.4, responded that the fuel stove, the stove uses is free. Again, they know that firewood is what? Is for free. And yet, when you ask it below, you're like, do you buy? Say yes. What's the cost of a bundle? Says 1 piece is 1,000. 5 pieces, 5,000. But they say it is free. I think the free in this setting is a function of access. Like when you could move along the landscape, you wouldn't move for over 40 or 50 meters without finding a heap of firewood, either by the roadside or within the trading center. Now, that is not the case for LPG or for bioethanol. Justine would probably qualify. how it is with bioethanol, but that's not the case. So, actually, it came out somewhere that some of these households, if someone wanted to use, if they have the money to pay for, let's say LPG, they have to move for at least within a radius of 15 to 21 kilometers to access gas. And from 15 to 20 kilometers, they were saying that this translates to about 20,000 shillings. And 20,000 shillings equates to 4 bundles of firewood, each of 5 pieces of 1,000. So as they're trying to look at how they come into the clean and modern cooking puzzle or fraternity, one is looking at going to Ishaka from, let's say, Mitoma or Virisi, spend the 20,000, and by the way, again, it came out from the qualitative components. I mean, interactions that even some men, in terms of perception, some husbands are not willing to let their wives ride on a bike or whichever way for 20 kilometers away to go and refill, some cylinder or something like that. So we have to advocate for these things to be in the proximity of the people that have to use them. Otherwise, the resources that they're depending on are dwindling. However, on interacting again deeply, we realize that there are quite a number of circles. Bunyangau, Bunyaruguru, something. Yeah. We also inquired on the main cooking fuel within the area. Like again, like as I said earlier on, that the main cooking fuel of the 180 sampled households, 174 reported that 96.7 that their main cooking fuel was firewood. And therefore, this reliance on firewood is not sustainable, and it poses a threat to the existence of natural resources within that landscape. We know them, the sheer forests, those parks, we know all this. So it's something to be a reason for the choice of the fuel. Why firewood? Again, they're saying because they can afford it. Firewood, like as I said, 1 piece is at 1,000. 5 pieces that make a bundle at 5,000. You can't relate this with gas that is as far as Ishaka from somewhere in Ruvirisi. The others reported that the fuel is free. Again, remember that bit of fire being free. 68.3 reported that they can get to the place where to buy it easily. And this is key to us that are promoting green cooking within this landscape. If gas is found in that radius of so much kilometers, and yet firewood is within, sometimes it's as they open their doors within the traffic center, the next hit in front of them is a firewood heap. You can't relate that with LPG. And some of them actually attested that they're even yet to see an electric pressure cooker, ethanol stove, and all this. So we need to be deliberate and intentional in doing some of this. And 55% is a critical point for 100 of these households saying that it's the only fuel they have access to. How can we just promote accessibility of other options if we promote clean and modern cooking within the landscape? Of course, then 42.2 that they are to the stove, meaning the stove that uses charcoal. Firewood. We try to inquire on the cost of the stove, but given that this is basically the stove that is predominant is the 3-stone stove, the cost was a bit of vaguely responded to, but some households responded that is an average of between 5,000 to 20,000. And those that reported 20,000 were getting, we got this stove from EcoTrust, which was coming from Mbale to the landscape, with the reasoning that there is no soil that can make improved cook stoves within that belt. This is not true. This is not true. So this is where now, again, the study and the proponents as civil society actors need to come up and say, how do we raise awareness? Do we have to make some samples to demystify this? The survey inquired on how often does the household refill their stove, or an understanding that maybe you could have some that are using the LPG. And this, the predominant response was 112 households that said that their stove, the stove that they are using does not require refilling, meaning how do you refill when using a 3-stone stove? However, when we ask about undesirable features about the stove, 136%, I mean, households, that is 70.6 reported that is stove produces too much smoke. 63% fuel isn't always available. 64.4% that the stove needs constant tending. 54.4% the stove makes the kitchen dirty. And 54.4 again, that the stove exposes them to high risks of burn and salts. So we were trying to look at the presence of circles within the area. And as you could see, this information here, it's apparent that there are circles within. I think it's the landscape is one of the areas where there are predominant circles that we could tap from as promoters of clean and modern cooking. The affirmation that somebody else would that they are financial institutions. Do you belong to a circle? Yes. 70% are saying yes. Awareness that you can get a loan on clean cooking within 12% were aware, the rest were not aware. Then we inquired that would the willingness of a household to get a clean cooking loan from their circle or ESLA or something like that. And 136 households, so 70%, were willing to get a loan from their circle to facilitate a clean cooking loan for as long as they were aware. Then conclusions, we said firewood is the most common fuel within the project area at close to 97%. It's mostly accessible. Restaurant stove it is. Community, there is a general yearning and desire from community to embrace improved cook stoves. The average land holding within the area, like we've seen it, does not allow for only depending on biomass. So we need to come up with alternatives that will allow us advance clean and modern cooking. However, community perceives new energy cooking solutions as those that are not reliable, not affordable, and do not match their social culture setting. Again, this is something to be advocated for. So let's promote access to affordable microgrid facilities on clean and modern cooking through community circles, DSLA and Mioga. Then allow for an organic growth along the energy ladder. Even when you want to bring in bioenergy, I mean bioethanol, biogas, electricity, just name them LPG. Even the minimum coverage of modern cooking stoves is very, very low. So along the energy ladder, if we have to jump and just bring on LPG or electricity or something, there will be some gap that I need to cover. At least move from the lower tier stoves to maybe tier 3 stoves. Then in all these districts, by the way, sorry, Mr. Bachika, just two. There is talking about energy is more of an incidental factor for them. So we are recommending for the you people at civil society, you advocate for these things. If possible, there should be a district focal person on clean and modern energy or cooking. One of the district development plans, looking for the word energy in the district development plan, you had to bring a magnifier. Yeah, and that's how a bit critical this is. Then tax incentives towards supply and development of clean and modern energy cooking solutions. Yeah, increasing financing and all that. Yeah, those are some like that piece of wood that I'm holding on this other right costs just 1,000 a piece, and 5 of those will give you a bundle which goes for 5,000. Now, on average, a household of maybe 3 to 4 members will take about not less than 80,000 shillings on cooking energy within a month. So if you translate this, it shows you that most of the household income, because some of these people, the average household income is around 100 and something. So if you're thinking about 80 into energy, you see the current state that we're in. I thank you very much.
When someone shares knowledge, we should applaud. Thank you very much, Mr. Karia. I am going to be mindful of the time because we have another presentation, and the consultant has been online for 1 hour and a half, so we don't want another invoice for overstaying online. I will wish to give an opportunity first to the online team. Any comments, question? I see we have around 15 people. So I want to start. I saw Ibra. Ibra has been following this survey from the start. So as Ibra is thinking, and the colleagues from Mitoma, Soro, is there any discrepancy in the findings, Penina? What you see in Kisoro, is it what is reflected here? I did see colleagues from Mitoma, but I think I saw someone from Uzidiri. So, as the colleagues, you continue to read through, I have some comments online, so please take note, consultant. Where are the 6 households, using LPG received from National LPG Project? Yes, Ibra, you go ahead. Unmute.
Thank you very much, Robert, and also the consultant for the presentation, and also for capturing a number of insights. My comment will touch more on the recommendation because I'm not sure maybe if these are expounded on in the report, but I would feel that we need to really focus a lot on how do we drive the change to scale up the access to clean cooking, because I think that is important. What lessons are we learning from previous initiatives that have been implemented by maybe funders like Worldwide Fund for Nature and other stakeholders? How do we scale up some of the business models really that are important if we're going to scale up access to clean cooking? Because we need to think a bit different, because clean cooking has been there for so many years, but we seem to be not moving as a country. So should we move more of having clear business models that really should show how can private sector work with maybe NGOs
Thank you, sir. Any colleagues from the region online who has a question or comment before I go to the physical participants? Okay, I see there is also a comment. How was the conclusion about high prevalence of SACCOs and ability to pay loans vis-a-vis affordability to pay for alternative fuel risk? Was it also data you generated and analyzed? Did you ask respondents where they are part of a SACCO and the ease with which they repay loans? So those are some exciting comments. I want to come here. I want to give opportunity to the first three. Yes, one also online has asked, our community is yearning for what is not affordable and or affordable. So how do you yearn for what even you can't put in your pocket? So colleagues in the room, I want to give chance to the first three. Yes, Anthony, Philip, is of me. Admin.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Just some observation. But there was a question of awareness on clean and modern cooking. I was wondering, the way you put it, is the technology or the concept of clean cooking? Because maybe it could have confused the respondents. Then the other observation I see on challenges, the technology design fit for purpose. Like you said, they still prefer the freestone because of the different sizes of the plants. It's a common problem, but somehow I think it needs more of a technology issue with chance to adapt. And the other observation is, like if we're talking the energy transition, I think maybe you may have to reflect somewhere either the recommendation or the conclusion on managing costs of transition, because I think there's a finding which talks about the cost implications for these technologies. So managing the cost for transition and also communicating the need to transition from this other type of energy to the other one. I think there are those fundamental challenges that we need to deal with.
Philip Anthony has spoken two of their points, so I'll give you one.
Anthony, thank you very much for speaking one of them. But it was very important. The study is good. Thank you very much. But the clean and modern cooking, from your introduction, the things are informed by guidelines. You quoted World Health Organization as one of the key things. So from the advocacy angle, in the study, you explore the challenges which come with dirty cooking. I didn't see anything related to health in your study. Did you visit any reports from health centers? Because as we advocate for the transition, the advocacy angle must be formed by some of these things. Why clean energy? Why clean cooking
because of the health issues there, but I didn't hear anything yesterday related to health. Then the very last one, in the introduction, but I heard somebody from Ministry of Energy, something like that. I don't hear well, but somebody from the ministry. Does this study, or does this study raise a wake-up call to government? Is there a need for government to do clean cooking? The study for humanity was sharing in those 3 areas. Ideally, what they call chronic the clean cooking may not ideally respond to the guidelines. So there is a mix now. What exactly do we mean by clean cooking?
Point taken. I told you Anthony spoke. So Anthony and raised the same. Please over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, consultant. When you were giving the presentation, there's something that was raised that people were saying that firewood is free, but again, there's a component of them paying for firewood. So I think it needs to come out clearly, the percentage of those that are buying the firewood and those that are really not paying for it. Now, one of the advocacy messages should come out very clearly in the recommendations. When you did the calculation, you found out that they are spending about 75,000 shillings per month. I have a feeling it could even be more, it could be more. So when it is compared to other clean cooking technologies, there's need to compare the cost so that when awareness is being raised, people actually come to appreciate the importance of having clean cooking technologies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. How I wish other commenters, respondents here also give us key messages. This side hasn't spoken. I want to start with you, Nat. I will definitely make Justine the last comment also on incentives, which I really don't want anymore. But these are things coming up. So just start. You can just start. Then him, then.
Thank you for the presentation of Mr. Lawyer. We share a lot of history together. Mine is a reflection on the statistics you've given us for biomass energy. The National Forest Policy quotes a rule of figure of about 96% use of biomass. Today, you have given us 97% of use of biomass. A slight increase by 1% of 1%. Is the world getting more used to biomass energy against the campaign that we should go to clean energy? Where are we going? How are we moving? Whereas we are advocating for clean energy, we are going backwards to use biomass energy, Thank you.
You have half a second.
Thank you very much.
Because we have another presentation and the gentleman is at the airport. So we are delaying him.
There was in your background for this study, you mentioned something to do with the aroma as one of the drivers of choice of the kind of firewood or fuel that the households were using. So that also accelerates the harvesting of particular types of fuel woods, or we want to see what in our advocacy messages, what can we say about particular species of trees chosen for fuel would as compared to the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. Come to this desk. And did Felix prepare?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm Grace Akiteng from UNAC. First, I want to thank you so much for the study. As you're presenting, I was telling Justin here that this is a very good report for us to, for even our proposals to different partners. This is a very good one. From the time I joined UNAC in 2021, we've not carried out any study of this nature, and I've not even come across any report of the sort. But this is very good. I hope it will be shared with us. Secondly, there were concerns about awareness. Also, from the time I joined UNAC, we've been creating awareness mainly in the Greater Kampala. But with support from FAO and GIZ, I see a concept being developed. We are going to get out to regions, and I hope this will help in awareness creation. And the awareness creation that we have been carrying out includes all those technologies, all of them, and where we explain the benefits of the different, like for example, an EPC, we even have meters that show how cheap it is to use an EPC versus the firewood. I don't know how WWF, maybe through other CSO organizations or other development partners, will help to maybe sample, carry out some of these studies in also other regions to give a clear picture of what is happening. Because as you're presenting, I was telling Justin that the volcanic rocks are from Kisoro, and how comes that they are not using them? And then she told me that volcanic rock system is about 900,000, and we're talking about the cost. So this report is very good, because then it will help us also with the policy advocacy, talk about the taxes, talk about subsidies, because now we have different organizations like UEPPC, which have the RRBFs for the hard-to-reach areas. And this would really help in reaching out to those places. Thank you.
Can you just break for us what is RRPF?
Yes, RBF, a results-based fund. So this it's a financing mechanism that is used to reward, especially suppliers, based on the results. So it's a results-based approach. It's unlike in the past when there was a grant, then they would give you, for instance, an advance payment of $40,000 US and tell you to go and supply the cook stoves. You go, you construct them, and then it's done. So now here, that method had a lot of challenges. So now what we employ now is we want to incentivize the private sector to go and provide these solutions. So we want to just make a top up, for instance, for the cost of transportation, the cost of transaction to deliver that product. So what we do is we want to motivate you to bring your product to a far, a harder to reach area like Kasese, Rubirizi. So when you take your product and you sell, like for instance, 10,000, first of all, we'll agree with you and say, okay, how many stocks can you sell within 3 months? You can commit and say, we'll sell 50,000 stocks in 3 months. So we'll sign an agreement with you and agree on particular milestones. Every time you hit a milestone, for instance, if you hit 10%, then we will provide you a reward for 10% of the stocks that you have actually sold. We normally expect those resources to be used to improve awareness creation, marketing, those logistical challenges to ensure that you can provide access to the product in harder to reach areas. So we are now shifting to results-based funds. Again, we don't want to distort the market. So you go, take the product in a far to reach area, then we will reward you based on the results that we have verified?
Colleagues, I am going to delay the feedback from the consultant, and Philip wants to hear from Minister of Energy. My simple request is let's put the two in the packages and then we wrap it up. Because the advocacy work will also now be tagging, you see the connectivity with the service. And I know we have delayed to bring in Felix. Felix, are you online?
Yes, I'm online, but unfortunately, I think my time is spent. I have a flight in 2 hours. I don't know how I can do this, maybe just to give a brush overview in about 10 or 15 minutes because I must rush out, and then I'll leave the team behind to help me capture the feedback. I will guide the areas that are very important for the strategy that the team validating and pay attention to more for purposes of benefiting from the process.
Okay, just to allay your fear, we are not validating the strategy. We are reviewing. This is the first review. So whatever you are presenting is as a zero draft as possible.
That is comforting. Can I proceed?
Please, please.
Thank you. And that is comforting to know that this is more presenting a zero draft because I was worried because I knew this was I was trying to serve food which is not yet ready. But that said, quickly, and you'll allow me to really be brief. The structuring is around the way the strategy is structured. You have the introduction and background, the methodology, the contextual analysis, the emerging advocacy issues, the goal and objectives, the targets, the messages, the strategies and tools, the networking and partnership strategy, the opportunities and events to take advantage of, the anticipated risks and mitigation measures, the implementation plan, and the M&E plan. Of course, there will be other annexes at the end of it all. But allow me to skip this part, which talks about what Emily is and the mission and how, why now Emily is pursuing to have a robust civil society advocacy strategy pushed for, and probably also maybe here on the background to talk about how this strategy, one, it's underpinned. One of the documents that informed it was an issue paper on nature-based solutions and the rights which highlighted the key experiences, lessons, and the emerging issues. But it's contributing to the ongoing project on deepening civil society advocacy on nature for climate. I think it's what I can mainly pick from this section. But in terms of methodology, we of course we benefited from focus group discussions. We spoke to a couple of respondents from the community-based groups in the different hubs in Bushenyi, Kasese, and Rukunjiri. Also had a couple of key informants with the individuals that have been working with Emily and WWF concerning NBS. And then also the literature review, which kind of like reinforced or provided contextual underpinning of what was coming out from those interviews. But allow me also not to spend a lot of time around the contextual analysis because I think this is an area where many of you are very familiar. But let me quickly talk about the emerging advocacy issues. From the interviews and also from the literature review, a number of issues came out. There are about 8 or 9. The first issue was around the legal and policy shortfalls, and this recognizes the fact that that the existing policies and regulations and frameworks do not explicitly define nature-based solutions. And whereas it's true, it's an emerging concept, but in practice, a number of our policy and legal frameworks, whereas they are trying to recognize that this is an emerging concept, they do not clearly define or even have a shared understanding on NBS. When you look at the, for example, the collaborative forest management guidelines, revenue sharing guidelines for UWA, also the ones that the guidelines for accessing genetic resources and benefit sharing in Uganda, among others, you see that there is no clarity on this emerging concept in terms of the way they define and understand it, and therefore so they are informed in the way they apply it. So that is a gap which we were able to identify, but also reinforced by that gap was the fact of the lack of awareness and understanding, more or less even lack of the capacity division between NBS from the other traditional approaches, which most people have been accustomed to or are familiar with. So that came out as a gap. And also when you look at the study which was conducted earlier, it was also flagged as a gap in terms of the limited understanding, but also the poor perception of NBS among different actors that are like civil society organizations as a barrier to its adoption. Another issue relatedly was around the narrow focus, which is also partly an attendant factor from the limited understanding around the narrow focus, or especially among duty bearers, on how the NBS is operates within an ecosystem. So they don't necessarily appreciate how it can be integrated within the socioeconomic outcomes, including taking cognizance of the issue of rights of beneficiaries. So partly a knowledge gap, which also kind of like affects the way, the lens within which they perceive or they see or they focus NBS. I partly talked about the lack of a shared understanding among the NBS stakeholders concerning, do we have a common shared view of NBS, a common shared understanding of NBS, a common shared definition of NBS, apart from what is provided for in the other frameworks. So a case in point was around where you see UWA and NFA interpreting NBS within their frameworks in light with their mandates and responsibilities. So, and especially situations where the resources shared is in shared custody between NFA and UWA, you find that sometimes there is a conflict because of the lack of that shared understanding. UWA is more predisposed to conservation, and its approach could be different from the way NFA would want to approach it. So that was a challenge as well. But also the solo approach and the weak coordination came out as an issue or as a gap, even when we were interacting with a number of stakeholders. You could see that there is no deliberate coordination mechanisms in place to coordinate and pursue NBS. And yet, when you look at NBS, it's a multidisciplinary, multi-sectoral, cross-sectoral. It requires a multidisciplinary approach, a multi-sectoral approach, a cross-sectoral approach, and a wide stakeholder engagement. So without that clear framework, that becomes kind of a challenge. And you see many of the actors were pursuing more or less silo approaches toward the adoption of NBS. Then another one, which is not just unique to this project or to Uganda, but I think globally, funding of NBS remains a challenge. So even here in Uganda, you find that the budget allocations to climate change, for example, for the last 3 financial years, continue to register downward trend. So overall, you see that the different actions that should be supporting NBS actions are not properly, or they are either underfunded or not even funded at all. So there is a challenge around financing, but also you see that the funding of NBS is more or less a siloed approach funding, because again, because of the siloed approach most actors are pursuing. But lastly, it was an issue around the locally led actions on NBS are also not necessarily funded. And you see that mainly the funding partners, the likes of WWF and others, are the ones who are standing for supporting a couple of actions here and there, tree planting, beekeeping, but there is limited funding really going towards locally led actions by the local actors themselves. So it's a gap in itself that came out as an issue. There were aspects around social and equity considerations as well. One of the hubs we visited, there were challenges to do with how, as indigenous groups, their rights to access the park are infringed. So again, these are case by case, but I think you cannot necessarily push it under the carpet. You see that in some areas, especially where you have the benefits and burdens of NBS projects not being equitably distributed across the communities, and probably leading to concerns around social justice and equity. So it's important that we also capture that one. So with that background of issues that seem to be coming out, we then framed we were able to propose an advocacy goal, which specifically looked at addressing aspects around awareness and understanding of nature-based solutions among key stakeholders, but also fostering transparency and accountability in the way it is implemented, at the same time advocating for increased funding for NBS with the focus on locally led initiatives. With that, then we are able to extract 3 advocacy objectives. One objective looked at increasing awareness of NBS and fostering a shared understanding among stakeholders. The other focused on enhancing transparency and accountability among stakeholders on NBS actions. And here, I think most actors were mainly looking at NFA and UA, but I think we can expand it. But also the third was around how do we now advocate for increasing funding of NBS actions with emphasis on locally led initiatives. So in that manner, we now were able to look at who can we target, looking at the different 3 objectives, the advocacy issues each of the objectives is carrying, but also who is the power center, which buttons should we touch to change. For example, if we want to increase awareness around NBS and foster shared understanding among stakeholders, who are the primary targets and who are the secondary targets? So that objective is able to carry about 3 advocacy issues, one on awareness, another on shared understanding, another one is on a narrow focus. And we thought that it's important to target UA, target NFA, target local governments of the different, especially where the project is, Bushenyi, Mitoma, Kasese, Chisoro, Rubirizi, where you specifically will target the district natural resource officers, the district forest officers, environmental officers, but also target the communities living near natural resources in the districts of Bushenyi, Mitoma, Kasese, Chisoro, and Rubirizi, but also target the organized conservation groups in the project hubs. I also thought that it's important that we look at Ministry of Water and Environment as a secondary target concerning that objective, especially looking at Climate Change Department and the Wetlands Management Department, probably also the Directorate of Environment Affairs, but also the role Ministry of Agriculture plays, and the pro-climate change CSOs, some of which are probably part of the stakeholders that have convened for this meeting, that are operating in the districts that where those hubs are. In terms of the second objective, which the second objective mainly carries the advocacy issue around transparency and accountability, with among the government agencies mandated to promote and implement NBS. We looked at UA primarily and NFA because most of the respondents were raising those 2. But also the Uganda Wildlife Authority for its mandate. Then in terms of the secondary targets, we consider the communities living near natural resources in the districts of Bushenyi, in those hubs, but also the pro-climate change CSOs operating in those districts. For the third objective, which is about funding, how do we increase funding of NBS actions with emphasis on the locally led initiatives? We looked at Parliament, especially considering Parliament Committee on Natural Resources. We have a forum there on climate change, the Ministry of Water and Environment, MAIF, all these have a role to play, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development, but also these NEMA and UWA and NFA. How do we now influence them to be intentional when it comes to budgeting for NBS actions? In terms of the secondary targets, we looked at the local governments, but also looked at some of the development partners that are doing a lot of work around climate change, and the likes of UNEP, UNDP, World Bank. How do we influence those bigger players? African Development Bank, EU, the Global Environment Facility, a number of them, including private sector, focusing on the renewable energy companies, agribusiness companies, but also financial institutions. Now, quickly, the advocacy core messages will be, this is work in progress, but they will broadly be around these areas. Messages around increasing allocation of funds towards financing NBS, messages around conditioning budget allocations of those actors to incorporate NBS actions, messages around allocating a percentage of locally generated revenue towards supporting locally led initiatives, messages around publicizing and popularizing existing mechanisms through which communities can participate and benefit from these NBS programs, messages around protecting and defending the environment and embracing NBS as a more viable option, messages around promoting NBS among policymakers, practitioners, and the public, but also messages around popularizing and disseminating knowledge products on NBS. On the strategies and tools, as my time is pretty running out, we looked at research as one of the underpinning strategy, mainly looking at how do we document funding shortfalls, how do we document value for funding locally led initiatives, but also looked at how do we make use of advocacy ambassadors that have been identified and selected to promote and champion advocacy for increased funding. How do we then also, would we also explore the strategies around holding strategic dialogues to lobby for increasing funding of NBS? How do we conduct media engagements, publicizing the value of NBS and influencing actions of duty bearers to prioritize funding of NBS? Then the exposure visits, providing cross-learnings and benchmarking among countries that have made progress in this area. Use of IEC materials to create awareness and sensitizations about the comparative advantage or benefits NBS offers over the other traditional approach. And then lastly, the strategic alliances, coalitions, and networking that contribute to having, how do we harness the collective voice and power so that we are all singing from the same hymn book and advocating for increased funding. In terms of the tools, so with the strategies I've shared above, so the tools that can support the strategies, we looked at the research reports, the memorandas, lobby sheets, position papers, formal and informal meetings, traditional media and social media, power brokers, the use of audio media, visual materials, awareness workshops, sensitization meetings, and model groups practicing NBS. I also were able to look at what can the partnership and networking strategy look like, where I categorize collaboration, networking, and coordination, and probably how each differs from the other. And with government, for now, I could say that mainly with government, you can collaborate, because collaborate here, it involves more of a strategic and purposeful partnerships between the state actors. And how do you work towards pursuing a common goal to either influence policy or a practice and push for a particular issue? So for government, it was, for now, what was clear was more of a collaborative approach. For civil society organizations, it's more of networking and collaboration, networking where you have intentional actions that build and maintain relationships with like-minded organizations that share goals and interests on NBS. And then with the development partners, it was more of collaboration and partnerships. In terms of opportunities and events that this strategy can benefit and amplify its cause, I was able to look at, probably you explore the World Wetlands Day, which is on 2nd February. There's the World Wildlife Day, there's the International Day of Forests, there is the World Water Day, there's the Earth Day, there's the International Day for Biological Diversity, there's the World Environment Day. There's the World Habitat Day, there's the International Day of Climate Action, the UN Climate Change Conference, which many of you are familiar with. So there could be others. So these are the other areas where you could, in the plenary, could propose what are the other opportunities, other days and events and spaces that can be taken advantage of. In terms of the risks and mitigation, I was able, I could map out 3 clear risks. One was around the awareness and understanding, and why is it a risk that it has an impact on how NBS actions are perceived and prioritized, and adoption is able to be seen. So as a mitigation measure, which is also partly relates to what the strategy is about, is have more comprehensive awareness campaigns. But another serious risk was around the resistance from politicians due to political interests. I think already you've seen how there are different voices around what NEMA is doing concerning reclaiming wetlands. So some politicians are coming out for political ends. So if that is happening, so that means that also when it comes to NBS actions, we cannot turn a blind eye to a potential risk of where you either have resistance from politicians who are pursuing their personal political interests. So, but it's important that they are engaged early enough in the process to have a buy-in, but also highlight, document with evidence and demonstrate how NBS is effective for them to have a critical buy-in, but also highlight the alignment of NBS with the different policies, the national development policies and different environmental goals that the country is pursuing or the country has. I'm not going to go through the implementation plan, but the implementation plan has actions like quickly around actions that speak to conducting public awareness, actions that speak to having workshops, awareness workshops, actions that speak to integration of NBS action into school curriculums, actions that speak to convening multi-stakeholder engagement platforms that facilitate dialogues and roundtable, actions that speak to specialized trainings of the different actors so that their capacity and understanding and implementation of NBS is improved, actions that speak to IEC, using IEC materials to deepen understanding, especially and also localize the understanding of NBS, actions that speak to awareness media campaigns and also sensitization media campaigns, actions that speak to research that can generate evidence on the effectiveness of NBS, but also actions that speak to creating platforms where NFA and other stakeholders can disclose information about what they are doing about NBS, including budgets and timelines, actions that speak to providing spaces for regular reporting by stakeholders on what they are doing in terms of deepening NBS, actions that speak to public hearings where stakeholders interface with beneficiaries to address concerns that are around rights and all that. Also actions that speak to policy briefs for lobbying purposes. But also I thought it would be important to have some form of an intervention or an action that recognizes and awards state actors that are demonstrating exemplary, that are being exemplary and demonstrating being champions of NBS across. Each of the objective has actions under it. So there are also actions, for example, an objective 3 that will look at having a research, having position papers, having lobby and influencing meetings, probably even implementing an issue-specific campaign that is focusing on local-led financing of NBS actions, but also publishing success stories and case studies from communities that have benefited from NBS, so that we can illustrate how effective it is. And then also lastly, ones that speak around partnerships and collaborations between the different actors. So in a nutshell, that's the outlook of the advocacy strategy and plan. Over to you, and I beg to excuse myself.
Before you excuse yourself, remain. As you go to check in, first we need to thank you, Felix, that you have worked really under pressure. You made that last provision we put in your ability to work under pressure. So thank you so much. And just to know, we are going to make sure we consolidate as many comments as they come in. I just wanted you to take that as you are boarding the plane. We wish you a safe flight back to Entebbe. And as I open the floor, I want still start with the online team for the physical team. I'm told our tea is outside. So colleagues online, if there is no any hand for now, I want to come here. Yes, Anna, please. Let me take this. Anna and who else? Are these different to get who are these body? Are you skip on? Yeah, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Felix. This is a very good job for someone under pressure. Just a small comments. One is that we have a number of good advocacy issues, but I think we need to refine some of them that are a bit similar and just a break off to make them a bit smarter. I was thinking, one, you said financing, limited financing; two, coordination; three, limited appreciation or understanding; four, inadequate capacity; five, the governance-related issues that talked about social equity; six, the limited support; then seven, integration in the national policies, plans, or projects. Those would be our very good advocacy issues. Secondly, your M&E presentation, I think you had done that, but it would be good to have that M&E framework for the advocacy strategy. You could look at issues of the success indicators, the means of verification, and a simple M&E plan. Otherwise, thank you for a job well done, Felix.
Yeah, thank you very much, Felix. Quickly, I wanted to find out whether the wetlands department is of any use in this, because of what the discussions we're having at the moment, and that goes around the whole country. Then the second one is on the, I thought it was an opportunity for us to popularize the NBC. Because you know, it has also options for NPS, but also the global biodiversity framework. That also it could be an advocacy part, you know, for this to be rolled out.
Okay. Felix, everyone seems to be agreeing with you. I don't see hands. Colleagues online, I have seen Carol, Ephraim, Nicholas, and Arthur.
Maybe Felix, can you respond to those two as you go, and then the rest will consolidate as the others are coming up, as we are refreshing.
Thank you so much, colleagues. I think most of them are their proposals. Yes, I agree the issues are many, and I think they will be collapsed and made smarter. That's something I'll look into. That's a proposal which I highly welcome. The M&E framework I just didn't present it because I thought it would benefit more if if you present the implementation plan and members are able to agree on the actions, then the M&E. But it's attached. Maybe I would request Jali at some point to flash it on the screen and see whether members can. Maybe one thing I may request that when they look at those actions, there's an area which is it's important that the team agrees who takes lead on those different actions and who are the supporting actors. Because that's a section I hadn't yet handled. I thought I would have that first with Emily, but we can make benefit of this space. There was a proposal whether we can consider you take advantage of the strategy to popularize the other initiatives, the Global Biodiversity Framework. As I'll look at that, as long as they kind of like do not if they are focused and they speak to the advocacy issues, I think yes, why not? Because the most important thing is that the advocacy is the way it is structured. It's what are the issues, what are the goals, what are the objectives, and if that fits into any of those, then it's something we can consider. So I'll also look at that in hindsight. So I think for me, by and large, these are proposals that I'm open to. I also encourage you to look at the mapped stakeholders. I could have missed some probably, or some may not necessarily be very important. So probably look at them as well and improve that section. Target. All right. I think with that, allow me now to go. Thank you so much, and I wish you fruitful deliberations.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm back to this strategy is supposed also to feed our hubs. We have 5 hubs, as you noticed the Virunga. But I noticed some of our hub members have dropped off the line. But maybe what we will do, we will share the presentation and the draft strategy with all the hubs and the solicit for comments. You see, that is a tactic they do in negotiations. When you want to be limited to discuss, they tell you, you put it in writing. And many of us don't want to write. So I would request that one of our actions, that each hub representative provide us comments in writing to this strategy before we plan for the second review meeting, which will be generally virtual. Because I say a number of them have dropped, maybe due to other running initiatives or network. So, colleagues, any additional comments? Okay, silence means that we are a bit okay. Hey, my boss.
Yes, a big thank you to the presenter. I just wanted to understand, the context and nature-based solutions in the context of energy. It's quite important because right now we're actually we are visiting an opportunity to develop a nature-based solutions project together with WWF, but oftentimes having to, clearly bring out energy in the context of a nature-based solution is something, that it would be nice to hear and see how we can also utilize that window to promote the utilization of clean energy solutions. Thanks.
Thank you. That was more or less a direct question to me. But what I can say is that, yes, we have developed materials on nature-based solutions. We have developed a brief which categorizes nature-based solutions. And where energy falls, nature-based solutions include the technology of a modified climate. So in the technologies, that's where we can have a category of energy. You have talked about these rocks, which we are using in its soil. Are they from nature? But there is specific technology where now you just modify these rocks by ensuring that when you wrap them against each other, you create that friction. Then it generates what? Energy. So we will share these briefs. It's actually they're already online. If you visit the Emery website, please visit our website. We have a lot of materials. Don't go to organizational documents. Go to consultancy reports and others. That's where we have many of these. But yes, many people actually think NBS is just practices, but they are also technologies. And we have categorized some technologies in our policy brief, and I invite you to read it. Richard was asking about wetlands, because it is a hot topic now in Uganda. We don't generalize all wetlands. You see, wetlands are also categorized in Uganda. We have permanent, we have those that occur every after a season. Then we have peatlands. Now in Uganda, the biggest problem now we are having, we don't have a map which differentiates between peatlands, permanent wetlands, seasonal wetlands, and even swamps. So everyone who sees a green papyrus area road will put up a hand and say this is a wetland. That is one of the problems we are having. The other thing is when you do aerial mapping of green spaces in Uganda, people like just who have done GIS, they will tell you everything which looks green can be categorized as what you want. Forest, wetland, swamp, even crops. If you are not careful, now you differentiate your resolutions. You can call for all those things which you want. Now, there is a lot of challenges, but that will be a discussion which we can hold moving forward with those who want to understand wetland and the concept of wise use. So what we can only say that for the permanent swamps and those that are declared to be protected, those qualify to give our function of nature-based. We have the modified wetlands, provided they are not turned into another land management activity. Now, what some people are pushing for, and that's why we need to be careful with this terminology. EU and rich countries are pushing for the word modified. So the simple thing they have to call temporary natural resources, or what we call quasi natural resources, which they have just established. Yes, they don't have this something which is still natural, like you have your udongo or you have your mporogoma, but they have modified the environment, or protected the green space, put whatever is required to have a modified macro environment. Now they are pushing us to accept modified environments as part of nature-based solutions. So that's why I encourage a number of you to join the UNEP ongoing discussions on NGS, especially the definition. Because once you agree on a definition of a modified environment as a nature-based solution, then you don't cry when the technologies come and they are telling you they are NGS. Okay? So, colleagues, as we move, I don't see any hand from our online participants. Peter, nice to see you. Diris, any comment? Ephraim, Ibra on the advocacy strategy? Okay, silence means yes. I really don't want to delay. I had promised Mr. Kaluya to respond to your questions and comments. That one I have not forgotten. I have not written 50 plus. That's the age of forgetfulness. And then after Kaluya responds to our comments and questions, I will later invite Justine to close our validation and review. Validation of the strategy, validation of the survey, review of the strategy and plan. And then we call it a day. Tea is served just outside. So feel free when you want to grab a cup of coffee, because I know it's already 4:30. But we can all continue to have tea after this. So, Karina.
Thank you very much for that. And thank you, colleagues, for your input. Basically, this is all food for, it's all for the betterment of the main document. I really tried to write some of these comments, and then there was someone who requested whether the 6 households that we're talking about LPG, were it from the national data or the baseline. Just to quench their thirsty, within the tool, we had to ask and inquire whether someone is using this and that within the tool. So we didn't have to probe to say that, are you sure that, because this is the quantitative data, you can't prove and say, are you sure you really have this? No, but the tool has that provision, and that was captured in there. Yes, are the recommendations expounded or true? But in the interest of time here, we try to just make some bit of it, but they are clearly elaborate within the main report. Then there's something to do with, again, from online, SACO, but that did we ask respondents whether they belong to a SACO? Yes, being online, sometimes you miss out some information because, again, internet is intermittent. But within, I said, the survey inquired, when we are inquiring, so we are asking participants or respondents onto their, is there this, are you a member, have you ever borrowed, do you know? So all that was inquired from within the survey, and it's the information from the respondents themselves. Then someone asked how our community is yearning for what is not affordable. The yearning in this case is that they are yearning for for improved cookstoves to be augmented, to be enhanced. It's not yet for bioethanol or electricity or LPG, but for the cookstoves, we are talking about 20.5% in an area where firewood usage is at close to 97%. So they're like, within the qualitative interactions, that's when they're like, if we could have more of this. Because in the landscape, one of the things that they are coming out with as an adaptation to the building of firewood is cooking using banana peel, that bit of pseudo stem for the leaf, that peel. They're using that part for cooking. They're also using a bit of bagasse and those smokes for cooking. And some, it comes out clear in qualitative. Some man would say you even want to cry. You see that you have matoke, you have sweet potatoes, but because of energy, you're unable to offer a meal to your children. And so that's how tight the extent is that we need to work. So the yearning was in the improved cookstoves to be improved. And what the survey is recommending is, at least before we jump to the others, let's transcend from the 0 to 2 tier stoves to at least tier 3, you know, and then we can say, then we go to LPGs, more of them, then we have the electricity, and then biogas and bioethanol. I feel there's something that you initially said at first, I think I missed, but the issue of managing cost of energy transition, surely, it's quite a cardinal inclusion that we need to incorporate within the report. After we have the costs, and then we can just align that to the main document. Then there was an issue from my elder concerning health. Unless you want us to add more, but within the main document and even here, health components were reflected. But nonetheless, thank you very much. That will be again more revisited to quench that.
The idea behind that, I didn't understand the terms of reference, but in your conversation, I didn't see any statistics. Your study was informed by statistics. Figures were highlighted there. And when we are discussing of this energy mix transition and to justify why clean, modern cooking practices, I think in my view, I would think they would be informed by some of the challenges within the sector, which are taken care of.
Right.
And your preamble was key. It spoke to the guidance of World Health Organization.
Right.
So I expect that as you go to those areas, because as you are presenting, my mind went to my community. I was looking at my community. So my community was Mitoma.
Mitoma, right.
Yes, I don't come from Mitoma, but what you are sharing, it's the same in my community in Uppsala.
I know.
You know, so there is no difference.
It might even be probably worse.
Absolutely.
The other side.
Absolutely. So I was asking myself, if you think it's the guideline formed by the clean energy is formed by the guideline of World Health Organization, but in your study, I didn't hear anything related to the statistics to justify why we need this kind of energy. Then the lastly, there was a mismatch. The definition of what is clean energy, idea is clean cooking. Because what is in Mitoma, for you, what you call clean, all that may be clean to them. For you.
Right.
Yes, what you call that is clean to them. But now,
I didn't call that, but there's relativity.
Then that's why we now we have somebody from the ministry, whether this is study, gives a wake-up call to the ministry.
Yeah, certainly comes down.
The preparedness of government.
Exactly.
This is study.
Yeah.
Do they make sense? Or they are simply there, who you are sent?
Never to buy the Thank you very much, Matthew, for that bit of elaborate. Then my elder, Mr. Kiyeji, Gasta, said within the National Forestry Act policy, it's talking about rural usage of about 96%. And then from these findings, we are moving to 97. Of course, the findings could be contextualized per geographical area. However, I think sometimes when you, let's say, you're in a pool or a river and you're about to drown, you even cling on the slightest of straws available because the alternatives are equally either expensive or not available. So our community's reliance on firewood is informed with many other factors, inclusive of the prices of these alternatives, that the immediate fuel that is within reach is firewood. And remember that, as I said, at some point, that every day if a child is born or every hour. And so population is doing this, but alternatives are not in reach. And eventually that brings that bit of just as a last resort. And that's why then all the actors in here have to wake up and make this more as a reality, just as Rita was putting up when she was then my friend here was trying to find out whether aroma, there could be a relationship between aroma and the tree species. Well, there could be, but when we talk about these members responding as a stove, when let's say they put their matoke on the freestone stove, that matoke will be allowed to simmer for quite some time, and therefore you come out with all the potassium in the banana leaves, enter there and all that, which you may not necessarily do on LPG. You don't allow matoke to simmer on gas, would you? Maybe not. So there's that thing. However, okay.
Yeah, I wanted to say something.
But
now,
please.
Yeah, now that perception might not be very right because the EPC has that capacity to simmer the matoke and cook it exactly. The only missing thing will be the aroma, which comes from the smoke. But otherwise, the EPC cooks it exactly. Right. The only challenge we will have with the last mile persons is the initial cost of those items. Otherwise, they cook exactly like the firewood. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Grace, for that insight and addition. So,
it was actually about
the firewood.
Having, because of the aroma and the choice of firewood, did accelerate the harvesting.
Yeah, there's a relationship. For example, we know that because of let's say Mavina Forest, when you're going to the other side of the bridge, there's that place where they sell chicken, and there's a specific tree species or herb, whichever way you could look at it, that is used for making the where that chicken, yes. And because of that, that specific tree or stick is building down, yeah, because it's most preferred. So equally, even within energy, there are other qualities that we want to look at for a specific tree or to be categorized as one that we would use for cooking. Maybe its ash content, maybe the pyrolysis content, maybe also looking at the ability to the calorific value. That's exactly combustion properties. Does it sparkle or it doesn't sparkle? Smoke content and all this. So all this will affect. But again, I think what Grace has put out we can marry the two. That yes, we can give you this facility. It will offer this, though the smoke component may not be there, but that is to get moving. And then, of course, Grace was really indicating the addition of this report into other awareness programs, and undertake this to other places, which I probably hope that Emily will do. And basically, Robert, that was it. I want to thank you for making input into this study. And together we can make this better, because our resources are really not expanding, but are building every other day. I thank you very much.
Yeah, well, we get up.
In the church, if a pastor says amen, everyone will clap louder. But when someone gives you knowledge and you appreciate it, it's matter of But thank you so much, Mr. Karia. And I take this opportunity to invite Justin. First, to reflect on those things we forwarded to you. One for me is tax incentives. Do we still need them? It was rephrased also into subsidies. Do we need subsidies in this business? And three, how do we use this information, which everyone in the room is saying that it is good, it's pertinent, is the Minister of Energy willing to take it further? Lastly, showing that we are attentive to there was someone who said energy as even a word is missing in the discussion. Do we need really to create jobs at local government for energy officers? What are the current practice for energy related work at local government level? And who is the designated officer for energy matters? For me, I'll be happy to hear from you on those, and then after you close us off, and we have a way forward. Thank you, and over to you. Can we welcome Justin? Yeah, now we're in the church. Provided the church is not in a waiting.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. First of all, thank you to Emily, Raise Facility, for prioritizing this study. It's very important to us, want to understand what is happening in areas such as rural areas. You notice most of our initiatives have been within, Greater Kampala metropolitan area, and want to scale up. And we also recognize that what works by dynamics, for instance, in an urban, setting, is different when you go to rural settings. They are contextual. So thank you, Emily, for this study that helped us understand what is going on. I happened to also participate in this study. What I saw was there are people who don't even have what to cook with. They were going to sleep without what to cook. They have the food. There was lots of coffee, bananas, potatoes. So you would really see people have income, yeah? But they don't even have the option of what to buy. And they're choosing to ration their food. They're choosing on what to cook because they're conscious about the fact that it will consume a lot of energy and they won't have what to eat, what to cook with the following day. So it's creating an issue of food insecurity and poverty, cooking poverty, but also, why clean cooking? I think somebody asked, it's an issue of morale. I mean, but what do I say? People having to, deal with, let's be humane, yeah? In the sense that why do I have to cook and, almost poison myself in the process because I'm exposed to smoke, because I need to prepare a meal? It's not good for my health. And I think that's the angle with which we approach clean cooking. Cooking doesn't have to kill, it doesn't have to be a source, or it doesn't have to consume your time. Just because you have to eat, you don't have to lose your productive time that you could have, used for business. Children don't have to spend a lot of time looking for firewood. This is time they would have used for, their education. So it's really very key to us to ensure that we have a just, approach to energy access to ensure that people have equitable access to clean, energy. Yes. So thank you very much to Emily for really prioritizing this. Is this important to us? It is very important to us. And we ask you, you in the advocacy world, please continue to advocate for this, because you're advocating for, that social, I'm not so good with these words here, but when you're looking at a situation, you want to be fair to everybody. That equitable approach to clean energy access. You want people to, have good health, good well-being. You're looking at, addressing all close to 10 sustainable development goals through an improved cooking system. So it's very important to us, and we thank you for prioritizing it and also creating awareness to, the policymakers, the politicians. In the past, electricity access was about extending a transmission line and a distribution line. Now, we need to look at, is the energy being used? What is it being used for? Is it being used productively? Is it being used to cook? And is it clean and, accessible? Do I have a fuel to cook with today? But what about tomorrow? And can I afford it? Yeah. Do I have to go hungry because I don't have what to cook with? We've seen similar situations in Busoga. People have to use sugarcane stalks because there are just no trees. There is no charcoal. Actually, what was supplied within Greater Kampala, you're fighting charcoal. Where we went to, there wasn't even charcoal to fight. The issue was, do I even have firewood to cook with? Because charcoal wasn't an option. You're wasting close to 90% just to have charcoal. So you're using firewood directly, but now the firewood is even, scarce. Yeah. So for me, it was really, it was very sad to see that in the day of Uganda today, where we are saying we have area, we are heading for middle income. There are people who don't even have what to cook with. We are middle income. Thank you for that correction. Yes, some semblance of that. So yeah, it's very important, and because of that, government is really, it features very strongly in our national development plans. We want to ensure that we have universal access to clean cooking. And what do we want? We are targeting eliminating cooking poverty by 2030. So where we have households with pockets of land, let there be a tree so that you don't need to cut down the tree, but you can get branches to cook with. But also, what technology are you using to cook with? We don't want to see the tree stone that will expose you to smoke. Let us use more advanced cooking solutions. Where we have alternatives, let's explore them. Unfortunately, where we went to, in Mitoma, Busheni, Greater Busheni, there wasn't any animals. I was equally surprised. You think of that area and you think they are endowed with livestock. So we went there looking at options. For me, in my head, I was like, no, we are going to give these guys biogas. Problem solved. We got there were no animals, there were no trees. For once, I was short of, solutions. And, I'm really glad that this study is really helping us to come up with solutions. And that takes us to the recommendations of the study. I hope that you can bring us good solutions and not just recommendations in form of sentences, but more of a cost-benefit analysis. If I'm buying the firewood at 1,000 shillings per day and a family of 5.5 on average is using 1,000 every day, that's 30,000. Can I have an alternative within that range? That's the kind of assessment we want to look at. Then in terms of recommendations, can we look at the last mile delivery? If the gas is in Ishaka town, what does it take to bring a private company to go to that sub-county that is 20 kilometers from Ishaka to put up gas and still make a profit? That's what we want to do. What do we need to incentivize these companies? Do we need to link them to circles to access, so that the people access finance to buy the products? That's the kind of recommendation that we are looking at. Then also, what interventions can government put forward? What we want is to ensure that at least by 2030, we don't have any three-stone fires. 2030, we have 6 years to go. We don't want three-stone fires, and when it comes to charcoal, we don't want these metallic cigarettes. No. We now want at least a sticky with a liner, a clay liner with it. It should be safe to use. It should not expose you to burns and scalds. Cooking should not cause any negative health attributes to the person, using. So that's the simple approach that we want. And then by 2040, we want to shift modern energy system.
10 years now.
Yeah, now 2040 is now 10 years from now. But we want to also achieve our vision 2040 in clean cooking. We want to shift to modern. Can we have a whole modern system, people using cleaner solutions? Because by then electricity access
more processed and modern.